for those of you who've been watching my videos maybe for a while and want to know a bit more about me, who I am, what I've done, kind of thing, what I do, what I'm doing, what the future holds, etc., in terms of my experience and you know, I don't want to call them achievements, but I guess you could call them that in the world of internet development and internet marketing, internet government regulations, etc. So back a long time ago, in this time called the 1990s, when the World Wide Web was brand new, and even before that, I've been involved online since I was a very young kid, starting around 1980, in the world of computer programming, early days of the internet, relatively early days of the internet. Already by 1980, the internet was already well more than a decade old, obviously, since it was invented literally in the 1960s, but very few people were using it in 1980. How I got early access to online things around the very, very early 1980s, and was doing things with programming and internet marketing at a very early age, and digital marketing more than anything. Initially, digital marketing of software development, etc., and then internet marketing, etc. Um, and in the early 1990s, when I was in university, the web exploded. Big was created right by Tim Berners-Lee, and I was already very active with email and Usenet groups and all kinds of different things online on the internet. And when I saw the advent of the web come around, I thought this is pretty neat. Started building web pages, started putting a couple of businesses online, different little entrepreneurial things I was doing for myself and for my agency. And after college, around 1994, when I finished university, when I finished my bachelor's degree, rather, I started to work, in addition to continuing to run my own agency, started to work for a Washington, D.C. lobby that was brand new, that had just started. I was one of I was like the first intern they brought on, and within a week of being an intern, or I think it was within a week or something, they asked me to work for them full time because I was, basically making sales for them, and they saw that I was quite adept at it, so they asked me, if I would like to actually do that as a full-time paid position. So I said yes, and I began selling memberships for this organization. In the early days, it was called the Interactive Television Association, or ITA, which then evolved later into the Association for Interactive Media, AIM, or AIM, and then evolved from there into the Association for Interactive Marketing, also AIM, or AIM. And eventually, that organization was sold shortly before I made Aliyah in 1998. Was sold to a much larger trade organization called the DMA, or the Direct Marketing Association, out of New York. But during the years that I was actively working in DC, and also some time after I made Aliyah, AIM was very heavily involved. ITA and then AIM, and then the other AIM, was very heavily involved in establishing a lot of critical foundation stones for the internet industry, the interactive industry, for e-commerce, for domain name regulation, for internet taxation, for the protection of children online, for internet advertising standards. In fact, the IAB, which exists to this day, and which is kind of like the industry standard, was created as a result of our Internet Advertising Council. Many of our council members were also founding members later of the IAB, and adopted the standards that we had created for their purpose. And similarly, the Online Childhood Protection, the Children Online Protection Act, or whatever it's called, I forget the exact acronym and name, but the regulations that govern online services and products to protect children online, all that was established initially through AIM. We laid the foundation stones for these things. We laid this foundation stone for keeping government away from, taxing online businesses, e-commerce, e-tailers, right? We established the initial holiday shopping week, which later became the foundation, which was the foundation stone for what would later become Cyber Monday, and Black Friday online and all that stuff. Cyber Monday and whatever the other one is called, I forget. But yeah, Black Friday, obviously online is a huge deal as well. I mean, obviously offline as well. But all that came from these different foundation stones we were setting. And we knew then that these would be foundation stones to protect users of the internet and businesses online, to make sure that they wouldn't be regulated out of business. At the same time, we were, informing the White House and Congress about critical infrastructure protection. So, for example, decentralizing the locations of the domain name server system, because the root servers at the time were located in far too insecure places. Like literally, some of the computers were like on or under some professor's desks, and the cleaning lady at night with her vacuum cleaner would accidentally knock out the power plug for a main DNS server, and then all of a sudden one of the root servers would be offline until someone would plug it back in. Like it was at a time when people should have been already taking the internet more seriously, but weren't really yet. And we had informed the government to do that. The Clinton White House and his PCCIP group and other groups, we informed them about the critical infrastructure necessity of securing the internet infrastructure, because at that time the internet was already doing about $1 billion a day in transactions, which was considered a significant amount. And we told them it's only going to get bigger. And of course, now it's hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars a day that move through the internet. So to us, it was a no-brainer that you would secure these things. Unfortunately, they didn't secure the things the way we suggested. We told them even specifically, like the AT&T facility inside the World Trade Center is a very big point where you should be considered about a vector of vulnerability, because 20% of the internet's traffic was routing through that building at the time. And unfortunately, 9/11 proved our point, because they hadn't decentralized all of the massive infrastructure that building held, and they hadn't secured it properly, in a way that such a terrible event would keep the internet running smoothly. And that's why you had a lot of internet outages across the US, and even people around the world who couldn't reach people, for example, in the US, or people in the US who couldn't reach people around the world, because so much of that traffic was, basically hitting a dead end when it ran into the AT&T building, and then had to be rerouted, etc. So there was a lot of difficulty. Hello there. Hi, how are you? My sound is low. I don't know why that is, but maybe this is better. If you're here, by the way, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. So we did everything we could to inform the government to secure these things. Eventually they did, yeah. But of course, unfortunately, they didn't secure everything until after the 9/11 hit. But they did, before then, at least secure the majority of the DNS servers in more secure facilities. After the first, couple had already been secured by SAIC and other groups, buried deep underground and secure bunkers with armed guards 24/7, the whole deal. And that's as it should be, because we're talking about the internet infrastructure that is critical to maintaining the internet. Because if you know anything about the internet and how it's built, there's basically 7 servers that run the internet. It sounds crazy, but that's how it is. And that's because there's a lot of, the way the DNS structure works is you have these 7 computers at the top of the tree, and they relay all the DNS information by keeping the domains in line, right? Like the address book of the internet. So yes, it is very critical that those things operate smoothly. And yes, there's of course several more top-level domain servers that can be added, or root domain servers that can be added to the tree, but they're usually only on or off, turned on for some experimental stuff, and they're not usually all online. So There's always more capacity to add more, because only 7 of the 11 are active usually, but pretty much 11 servers, even if they're all three active, is a very small number of servers or clusters of computers to actually activate and maintain all of the internet traffic around the world. But that's how it is, and that's how the server exists, and that's why those computers are distributed globally. They're not just all in one place. Um, my sound is still low. Already did before when it was Sahar. Oh, you in Sahar server? Right on. Cool. Nice to see you. Well, thank you for visiting my personal channel. Then I appreciate it. Um, yeah. So anyway, so these foundational things that we did for the internet, which are still in place today, right? Like taxation, e-commerce regulation, domain name governance, yeah, you name it. A lot of different issues, um, user interface designs, all kinds of different things we worked on over the years. They're still very much in place, and even though those things have evolved, obviously over the decades, they still remain highly relevant going forward, especially the things to do with taxation and protection of people and protection of intellectual property and domain names, um, and security, right, against terror attacks and things like that, because these things are all critical to the operation of the internet and to make sure that people have a positive experience. Oh, it's you, Secret Juice. Oh, okay. It's important that the internet maintain a positive and kind of healthy disposition, so that the user experience can be good and so that people can get the most out of it, essentially. And that's why it was so critical for us to do that work. Anyway, and that still has a lot of effect on what I work with today, even with the latest technology, AI, and all kinds of different tech. It still is very much impacted by the foundation stones we set in place, and will probably be for a while in the future, because these foundation stones, once you set them in place, they don't change much, right? Over time, they do change. Eventually, they evolve slowly, but they don't change much because there's no need for them to change much, right? That's the whole point of setting in proper foundation stones. And why do I mention all this? Because if you're starting a business, or if you have a business, and there are no foundation stones for your business, you're innovating something, you're pioneering something, you're not just copycatting another business, which, by the way, nothing wrong with copycatting a business. I'm just saying if you are making an innovative business or an innovative organization, one of the critical and most important things you can do is to do exactly that. Set foundation stones in place, whether they're not just for years to come, but potentially for decades to come, right? Even long after you might sell your company and be out of the picture. Because, first of all, for your own career development, that will establish you as a long term expert in this field and will help you know more people always who are on top of the game. But second of all, and more importantly, you're setting a positive and wholesome and healthy experience, not just for your customers, not just for your users, but for the internet at large. And that is a critical and important step for continuing to develop the internet in a positive way. And as much garbage and toxic crap as there is online, the positivity of it, the positivity of having access to online systems that enable you to communicate with people and do business with people around the world in a flash, is significant in the increase of people's quality of life, in terms of the individual user's power, compared to what it was 30 years ago. Right, you have as an individual far more potential to reach people and make an impact globally, and make businesses that scale to hundreds of millions or even billions of people, because of these foundation stones that we created and that other people also created in separate fields, right? So I have not gone through the whole laundry list of all the different things we set foundation stones for, because the list is really quite long. There's at least 30 or 40 different massive categories of things that that we impacted, from health and sports and medicine and all kinds of different to technology use, psychology, you know, what do you call defense contractors, nonprofit organizations, educational organizations, and the list just goes on. Content creation companies, entertainment companies, analytics companies, advertising companies, and on and on and on and on and on. It's just any sector you can think of. We had different groups of experts putting together standards and practices to be established for these industries, because we knew that each of these industries needed to have foundation stones. And that's essentially what we did by creating all these different groups. And that's why the work that we did back then, um, you know, remains critical today. And it's a good thing that they existed since back then already, because that is what has helped guide the internet to develop itself the way it has, and continues to guide it the way forward. Even as you create a completely new technology, right? That completely new technology has to adhere to certain technological standards that already exist in order for it to work, right? For example, if you want it to work online, it has to be able to work with TCP/IP, which was created back in the '60s. Um, and if you look at different applications people are creating today, that you think, wow, this is a new and innovative thing. Yes, it's a new and innovative thing, but it has to adhere to certain standards and practices, certain protocols, certain policies, certain laws, whatever it might be, because those foundation stones were set in place to make sure that whatever it is that you're innovating isn't going to be, you know, damaging to society, and that it will actually contribute positively to the experience of the internet, which is as it should be. And are there people who do things not following the standards of protocol? Of course there are. There's zillions of them. But the ones who actually are building long-term viable businesses that are designed to be, wholesome, positive businesses in the public eye, with a long-term objective for growth and becoming strong brands, strong companies that have a global reach and a global impact, those businesses do follow these standards and practices, and they continue to evolve those standards and practices based on the current times and changes, etc. And they do that because they know that that is the best way for their businesses to continue growing. So anyway, that's going to be it. Oh, thanks for being here, man. That's going to do it for now. I'm going to keep this video relatively short. I know it's already gone on 17 minutes, but anyway, that's it for now. So thanks again for visiting here. Again, I ask you to like this video if you liked it, if you found it insightful and informational. And by all means, please smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hopefully I will see you again in the next video. And yeah, that's it for now. Take care. Peace.